My name is Carolyn, and I talk to the spirit world. Travel with me to a dimension filled with love, light, and joyful surprises. Welcome to Carolyn's Psychic Playroom. Hello everyone, Carolyn Wilkins here, welcoming you to yet another episode of Carolyn's Psychic Playroom. I am thrilled and excited to offer to you a wonderful interview today with my friend Ann Theato. She's a psychic, a medium, an educator, and a world-class podcaster. She's going to talk about her podcast. She's going to talk about the classes she offers, the work she does to help you become more psychic and more empowered. So that's coming up later in the program. That was just a little teaser. But before I go there, I always like to start with just a little tarot reading for our collective today. And I have some new tarot cards to try. You know, if you've been watching the program for a while, I have a few different sets that I really enjoy working with. And this is the Tarot of the Orishas. I got this as a gift from my friend George Corey, and I'm excited because as a practitioner of the African spirituality and Yoruba spirituality, the Orishas are the gods and goddesses of that spirituality, and someone had the brilliant idea to make a tarot deck out of using those characters. So it gives me a chance to read using that Orisha energy, which is usually read with cowrie shells or kola nuts or things like this. So it's something a little bit different and fun. A combination of the Eastern and the Western, I would say. So I'm going to ask my Orisha Tarot deck to talk a little bit about the energy that is happening now. And by now, I mean kind of an eternal now, meaning the now of when you watch this program. You might be watching it next month. You might be watching it next year. But these cards will speak to you where you are, because that is my intention that I am putting on them. So they're going to speak to the needs of my viewers whenever and wherever you happen to be watching. I'm going to pull 3 cards for 3 energies or 3 events or 3 things that we need to pay attention to. So here I go. I'm going to shuffle. And now I'm going to spread out the cards here, and the Orisha Tarot will speak. So the first card is the Guardian Angel. Look at that. Beautiful. So regardless of what religion or what aspect of spirituality, I think pretty much worldwide, there's a concept of the guardian angel, the idea that there are energies present beyond the physical that are watching out for us. I'm sure many of us have had situations in which maybe we were in a dangerous place or a difficult time, and somehow we just received a whisper of a guidance that changed our direction, or a person that we didn't know suddenly walked into a room and changed something. I'll never forget one time I was driving and I decided to park my car on this kind of muddy bank, and I got stuck. I couldn't get out. I was stuck there and I was by myself, and suddenly out of the blue, 2 men arrived, and I want to say they arrived on foot. I don't know how this happens. They arrived, they helped me push my car, and then they walked away. and that was it. I always feel they were angels. So I'm sure they were earth angels anyway, one way or the other. So I'm sure you've had that. And the good news is the cards are saying your guardian angel is present, around, willing, able, and available to help you. Let's look at another card. Let's see here. And this card is the Six of Water. The Six of Water. And that card, from the look of it, to me, sort of going psychically, first of all, you've got a lot of water, you've got the moon, and you've got this lady. She's a mermaid, and she's just kind of lying there. She's not super active. She's not jumping up and down. She's not swimming anywhere. She's just resting. And I feel that she has come up on the shore after a long and difficult journey, and she is now resting and gathering her strength for the next step forward. So that is my psychic interpretation of this card, the Six of Water. I feel that it's a card about flow. It's a card about abundance, but the abundance is not yet here. It's on its way. We've made a long journey, and now maybe we need to step back and just rest for a little bit, rest in the flow of things, and then further beautiful developments will occur. So the Six of Water. And our third card today is the Ace of Earth. Look at there. That is the Taurus card of all Taurus cards. And I'm a Taurus, so I can really feel this one. It's a bull, the Ace of Earth. So what does this mean for you, my beloved viewers? I would say this is a time to be grounded. This is a time to stay focused on what you want, but don't get too stubborn. All right? We Earth Taurus beings, being bulls, sometimes we can be very stubborn, mule-headed, bull-headed, if you like, and not quite ready to be flexible. Remember that previous to that was the Six of Water, which is all about flow and flexibility. And the guardian angel is there to open the way for us, right? The Six of Water is there showing us the possibility of flow and flexibility, but not pushing. She's not pushing, she's resting. She's had a long swim. Now she's chilling out by the water with the moon. But there's a lot of life force there. There's a lot of earth energy there. There's a lot of power and strength there for you. So all three of these cards are factors and energies that you can use to move forward and make your own life better. The presence always of the angel and of spiritual support, the flow of water, and the knowing when to rest and take a break, and at the same time to be strong, grounded, supported, and moving forward with that earth energy. So I would say it's a very good outlook for you moving forward. My viewers, when you are watching this, take these energies into account. And and I will say at this time also that if you would like a tarot reading from me, either live on the show or privately, I give tarot readings, mediumship readings, trance healings. I do a lot of stuff, and you can find out about all of it on my website, www.carolynwilkins.com. So now, without further ado, I'm going to bring out my guest, Ann Theato. I know you're going to love this interview. Talk to you in a minute. Hi, everybody. This is Carolyn Wilkins, as you well know, and welcoming you to another interview segment here on Carolyn's Psychic Playroom. And I am so honored today to have as my guest Ms. Ann Theato. And she is amazing. Anne is just like the most Renaissance woman ever. She's a psychic, she's a medium, she is an educator, and she is now currently the host of an enormously popular podcast called Psychic Matters that is available on Apple Podcasts. And we're going to talk with Anne in more detail about all that. But anyway, welcome, Anne. It's great to see you.
Oh, thank you. What a lovely introduction. It's really great to be here. Thanks for inviting me onto your show.
Oh, beautiful. So, I'd like to start always with my guests with them telling the Psychic Playroom listeners a little bit about how they got their start. So, when did you first realize that you were psychic? Are you one of these people who you knew right away from the age of 2 you were seeing dead people, or was it something that did not come to you until later in life?
Well, it's a really interesting question because everyone comes at it from a very different place, don't they? So for
Yes.
me, I guess I began to become aware of certain things when I was in my teens, and I knew who I would see on the way to school. I knew which kids I would see. I knew who would be waiting at the bus stop. I had to pass a bus stop to go to my school and things like that. And I just suddenly started to think, how can I know this stuff? That's a bit weird. And then I used to see out of the corner of my eye shadow people, is all I can say. And I would say to I remember distinctly walking along the road with a boyfriend once. I was about 16. And I said, look at those two old ladies at the bus stop. And he was, there are no old ladies there. And they are. They're right there. There's one sitting down and one standing up. How can you not see them? So it was things like that that made me suddenly go, hang on a minute. There's something going on that I'm able to sort of know these things. So I got a packet of tarot cards when I was 17, 18, and I started to use them. And of course, tarot, when you read them, are very, very accurate. And I got scared. I didn't want to sleep in the same bedroom as my tarot cards. I used to put them outside the door as if, pieces of cardboard with pictures on were frightening as mad. But there was no education then, for people who were starting to discover this kind of thing. And if I said anything to my mother, she was a very, very strict Irish lady, and so you'd sort of just be sent off with a flea in her ear. And so I didn't really talk about it. I talked about it a little bit. I've got 4 brothers, and I talked about it a little bit with them, but they also just gave me a punch in the arm and told me to get lost. And so, I mean, who do you tell?
Yeah.
And then it really started to kick off for me when I had children. I was in my 30s. So all the way through my 20s, I carried on doing the tarot. But when I had my children, I really did see shadow people in the house. Things were moving. I don't mean, like you might see in some Hollywood movie where, I don't know, that statue behind me might start to shake. It wasn't anything like that. But there were shadow people that I would see. Arms and legs, and I'd see things like shadow mice, like mice and rats on the kitchen floor that weren't there. But I don't mind mice and rats, I like them. But I would see these spirit animals. It was bizarre. And so that's when I started, I got to go and work out what this is, because it was a little bit frightening because my children were young and I didn't really know what to make of it all. And one other thing I'll mention is when I was pregnant, I went to a psychic medium, and they said to me, you and your daughter have lived together before. You've had a lifetime before. Oh, he didn't say daughter, he said baby. And he said, be aware that when she starts to talk, she'll start talking about that. And she's also very psychic. So I was like, rubbish. What a load of old rubbish. So I went home. When my daughter was 2 or 3, she suddenly came out with a phrase, oh, do you remember the day that we died together, Mummy?
Oh, my goodness.
I know. As if
Wow.
it was said in such a matter-of-fact way, like, oh, do you remember when we went to the park? Or do you remember when we went to the shops? So I was like, my heart started to beat really fast. And I was like, darling, what do you mean we died together? Tell me more about that. But because she was 2 or 3 and the attention span of her and that, she just said a few things. Oh, you know, when all the houses fell down and we died
Wow.
in the buildings. Then the buildings fell down. So, and then she started to talk about the lady she saw at the top of the stairs. And that was the lady I had been seeing. And that's when I thought, something's going on here. I better get some training in this.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Oh, what an amazing story.
Yeah.
I will say those shadow people, I've seen them as well, and they can feel very scary. I'm glad you brought this up because many times when I ask people, who are psychic, how did you get started? And they're, I had visions and angels came and hovered around my bed and all that. And yes, that happens, but there's also things because, as you have pointed out, our society, we're getting better, but we're still not very open to so many of these things. And so when they happen, you're on your own as to how you interpret them. And quite naturally, because they're so far out of the norm, you feel like maybe I'm going crazy, maybe there's something really wrong, or as you did, putting your cards out of the room, which is hilarious now, but at that time I can completely understand, and I have done similar kinds of things myself because we think that it's this object that we're reading that is the power, and that if we get rid of that, scary things won't happen anymore. But of course, until we learn to address our own gifts, those visions and things will continue to come. That's so right. I'd like to kind of take a small detour now, because you've mentioned a very interesting thing, which is that many of us have these visions and gifts and things. If I'm not mistaken, you do some teaching. Am I right with that?
That is correct, yes.
So I'd like to kind of just take a little turn and discuss that, because I feel that in this time, so many people are waking up to the fact that, that little fleeting shadow that I saw, that actually is something, or that insight that later came true. People are waking up in a way that they have not been previously, for many reasons, but I'd like, if you could, to talk about the teaching you do and how you help people to cope with their own skills.
Yeah, it's so vital that if you do get this kind of awakening to the spirit world, that you do get some assistance and help with it, or some training, because it can at first seem quite alarming because we don't understand it. Once you understand it, you can relax and you can be so happy and it's joyful and it's great. But when it first starts off, so I'm really passionate about helping people to come to terms with what is happening with them. So I teach a development circle on a Friday evening, which is great because there's students from all over the globe. It's no longer that we have a development circle that takes place in somebody's kitchen on a Wednesday evening. That's how it used to be years ago. But we have got Zoom now, which is just a joy, and lots of people can come in and meet each other with from various different countries, etc. So I teach a development circle, and I also teach different workshops on my website. So, I teach on Zoom. I do teach things like tarot. Tarot is a passion of mine, an absolute passion. I've been reading it for so long. So I've teaching things like, I've got a workshop coming up called Horses in the Tarot. And this weekend I'm teaching the Royal Court. So with the court cards always used to really confuse me when I first started reading tarot, and I just used to just leave them out of my readings because they were just too complicated. I'd just take them all out of the pack and read with the rest of the cards. They used to scare me.
That's one solution.
Because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So it's helping people embrace the court cards. Again, it's about, don't be frightened of them. They're so super easy to read. Anyway, so there's a workshop on those. And then I do all kinds of different things. I teach mediumship. I was teaching last night for the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle Centre, which was wonderful. That was online. And I was teaching psychometry, how to read the energy from objects and photographs and places and buildings.
Okay, wait a minute. Pause. Time.
Okay.
So you did that on the Zoom?
Did it on Zoom.
With the reading, with the psychometry, because I always thought you had to actually hold the thing. For people who don't know psychometry, just the one sentence explanation, if you could, Anne.
Psychometry is reading the energy of a person, place, or object. That's it, basically, in a nutshell. And you can read the energy from a photograph of the object because the photograph contains an atmosphere of the energy contained within the object. So surprisingly amazing results can come from just looking at a photograph of a building in the interior or the exterior or a map. Obviously, if you hold an object, you can really feel a lot. Some objects, of course, depending on what their history is in the lifetime of a human being who's touched it. And it's very tangible when you hold it in person, but it's absolutely possible to teach it online.
Wow, fabulous. And so that's just the smallest little summary of the many things that Anne teaches, because I know she does a whole lot. And I'm going to put your website information in the crawl thing below, a little subtitle with that. But can you just tell the people what is the name of your website?
Yeah, it's quite easy. It's my name, anntheato.com, ANNTHEATO.com.
Perfect. All right. So among the many things that she does, obviously you can go to Anne to get a reading. You can go to have your tarot read, as well as perhaps mediumship and talking to your passed over loved ones, or psychic, like a life reading type thing, soul to soul kind of readings. She does all that. She teaches how to do that. And but she also is the host of a hugely popular podcast, and it's called Psychic Matters. I follow it zealously, and pretty much all the mediums I know follow it as well. And I just love that you have targeted this program specifically to people who are interested in the psychic, and in practitioners in particular seems to be your focus. I'm sure other people who are not practitioners but just curious can also listen, of course. But it's my feeling when I listen to the people that you interview and the kind of questions you ask, that it's a kind of practitioner to practitioner conversation, which I find intensely interesting. So tell me how you got the idea to start this podcast, how long you've been doing it. Just tell us a little bit about it.
Well, thank you for mentioning it as well. I really appreciate you doing that. It is a free resource, so everybody and anybody in the world can listen to it for free. It doesn't cost anything. There's no adverts in it, so I'm trying very hard never to put any adverts in it and just keep it purely conversational about psychic, because psychic matters. And the reason I set it up was going back in my story. I've already explained I was on my own with two small children. I was a single parent. Things were happening in the house. I had no money. I was absolutely skint. No way could I really afford training, and I couldn't leave my children. I had no childcare, so I couldn't go anyway, even if I did have the money. So with that in mind, I'm thinking about people who are now in the situation I was in, but also people who perhaps just live in a country that don't have access to very good spiritual tuition. We're very lucky here in the UK. You're lucky in parts of America. There are some very good spiritual institutions that you can go to learn. But people in Europe and beyond, they just don't have access. And so I set it up to interview experts in their field. And I set it up as a platform it's a platform for learning, of course, so anybody can listen to it. You don't have to be a practitioner or a medium or a psychic. You can, if you want to learn about the topic, you can listen and learn. And I wanted to make a safe platform for people like you and me, Carolyn, to talk about the work that we are doing, because we are the modern day pioneers. We learn about people like Maria B. Hayden and, Gordon Higginson and all the others that have gone before us, but we are now those people.
Yes,
and so it's our turn to carry the baton a little bit up the field, and then we put it down, and the people coming after us will pick it up and take it further. Yes. And so it's a safe place for people to talk about the work that they're doing, the incredible work that they're doing, and sharing experiences. And so as I go forward into this year, I really want to explore the science of spirituality as well. So where the science meets spirit, what's been proven and what has not yet been proven. So, yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's really exciting. And as you say that, I'm reminded of my one and only life-changing visit to Arthur Findlay College, and how they have a room where they have all these kind of antique, now scientific instruments that they try to take pictures of auras or measure people's brain waves and all this type of thing. And of course now there's renewed interest in all these kinds of things because now with quantum physics, etc., we do understand that what we understood to be the quote-unquote natural truth of the world perhaps was not accurate, and that there's a whole lot more going on in the world, even scientifically, things that can be proven that back up things that intuitives have maybe always had some sense of, and mystics had always believed in the oneness of everything and the way that everything is a vibration, etc. So I'm really happy to see that you're going to be stepping into that topic. Yeah. And where can people find your podcast? Because I'm sure now they're totally eager to learn more about it. How can they find you and listen to you?
Well, the Psychic Matters podcast is on almost every single podcast platform that is out there. Mm-hmm. Lots of people still don't listen to podcasts. They don't know what they are. They don't know how to find them. So it's a really good question. But if you go to Google and just put in Psychic Matters podcast, press return, and you'll find many, many ways to listen to it. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. And I'm assuming that people could also go to your website and that there would be a link there as well.
Yep. And on my website, I transcribe every episode that I create word for word so that deaf and hard of hearing people have equal access. And also for people who maybe listen to it and can't quite remember what they taught. When you're, or what they heard. When you speak to someone and you're trying to explain something and you can't quite remember what it was. So you can go over to my website and you can have a look at the transcript, and it's got the resources in it. So if somebody's mentioned, oh, I trained at the Edgar Cayce Center in America, there'll be a URL link. You can go and see what that is. So so you can listen to the podcast actually on my website. You can have a look at the show notes. And and you're coming on, aren't you? You're going to come on Psychic Matters.
I'm super excited.
Excellent.
And I must say, as someone who has my own program, I am deeply aware of how much work that is. What you just said that you're doing, I was like, wow. Yeah. That is really a service for the listener, not only to be able to watch it again and listen and maybe hit a couple of websites, but you're saying also they can see the whole thing word for word written out with important links that they can go to. So it's a super educational resource. So once again, and you as a teacher, even through this podcast, educating. So that's super. Now, this is really worthy work that takes a lot of time, effort, and energy. I can testify because I would not dream of transcribing every word of this thing. I take my hat off if I had one to you. But people may be feeling, wow, this is great. I would really like to support this effort. This is a community service that Ann is bringing. So I understand that you have recently opened a Patreon account.
That's right.
So could you tell the people how they can support you in your work should they choose to?
Well, if you do choose to, that would be amazing, and it would be just make my day over and over and over again. I had to set up the Patreon account because these episodes, as Carolyn's just explained, they take 4 full days to make each episode. So that's why I only release an episode every fortnight. I opened a Patreon account. On there, you'll see there's different tiers of membership, from £5 a month, £10, £20, and £100, depending on where you're financially. It doesn't matter which tier you click on, that you're all just as important to me, I promise you. But each tier has certain benefits. So if you go onto patreon.com/psychic matters, you'll see the different ways that you can support the podcast. And what's important is it will help me to buy new equipment. This little microphone here, it's nearly on its last legs. I've got a microphone stand that I don't know if you've been noticing through this program. It's going down and down and down. So it's just things like that. It will just really enable me to really focus. And if I could get some patrons behind me, then I would have time to release one every week, which would be amazing, and help so many more people across the globe. So it's not, the podcast is not for me, it's for us. It's for all of us, and that's what's really important. So you be supporting the community of people that are behind the Psychic Matters podcast.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And thanks, Carolyn. Another thing you could do, if you are, as I was, and for many, many years, are financially not able to do that, how you could support it is going on to either Apple iTunes or Stitcher, if you've got an Android phone, and writing a written review for it. Because what happens then is it moves the podcast up the podcast charts. And if the podcast moves up the podcast charts, more people in the world get to hear about it. So that's how you can really, really help.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that. Well, I'm telling you, you are just a force of nature. You've got so many wonderful things going on. And it's just been a joy and a pleasure to speak with you today. Ann Theato, I'm going to put your information below so that my listeners and viewers can follow you. And please supporting her podcast, her Patreon, and maybe checking out a course or two. because she's got a lot to offer. So, Ann, thank you so much for being my guest on the Psychic Playroom today. It's really been a joy, and I will have to have you back again because there are so many things I wanted to talk to you about that we didn't get to that'll have to wait for another time. But thank you so much for being my guest.
Oh, it's an honour, and I'm so delighted that you invited me on. Thank you so much, Carolyn, and thank you, everybody who's watching.
Well, there you have it. I hope that you loved that interview as much as I did. I had a ball talking with Ann, and I'm sure that you are now fascinated to find out more about her wonderful podcast, her courses, and her website, antheato.com, where you can find out everything you need to know. And don't forget to support her Patreon as well. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed the program. I always enjoy spending this time with you. If, once again, you would like to receive a psychic reading from me, a tarot reading, or if you have comments or questions about the program, don't hesitate to write me at my website, www.carolynwilkins.com. All right. Have a beautiful, beautiful day wherever you are in the world. This is Carolyn Wilkins signing off for now. Talk to you soon.
Thoughts are things with the energy to make life better for you and for me. Touch the light.